But I want to just explain why I'm involved in this case and with these attorneys. I spent 35 years as an environmental lawyer. I teach environmental law at law school for environmental litigation at law school in New York for 30 years. I've represented river keepers and water keepers around the country. I run those organizations, the biggest water protection group in the world. I've brought over 500 cases against most of them against big polluters, against all kinds of polluters. And the kind of litigation I did for most of my career were statutory cases. So it's like the Clean Water Act, the Clean Air Act, Endangered Species Act, and I would sue under those to get the company to change its behavior. There are penalties, but they're not very big penalties. They're $20,000 a day or $30,000 a day. These big companies, the penalties are not big enough to change behavior. About 10 years ago, some attorney friends of mine asked me to come try a case in West Virginia. It was against DuPont, poisoning a community. 10,000 people had been very, very badly poisoned by a smelter. The name of the community was Spelter, West Virginia. I went down and I tried a 6-week jury trial. It was the first time I've ever tried a tort case. And we won. I did the jury summation and, led the case. And we won the biggest judgment in the history of West Virginia, $633 million on behalf of these plaintiffs. And at that point, a switch turned in my head where I thought, this is a much better way to get corporations to change their behavior than what I've been doing. I've spent the last 10 years doing multi-district litigation cases, which are different than class action cases, and that they're much more beneficial to the clients than class action cases. If somebody tells you they're going to bring a class action case, my advice to you would be not to do it, because it's a case that benefits lawyers, not clients, generally speaking. And in the multi-district litigation cases, you're suing on behalf of large groups of people, but each case gets treated individually by the court and by the defendants and everybody else. I married an actress, Cheryl Hines, 5 years ago. I moved to Malibu, and I moved next door to a lawyer called Brian Strange, who had become a very good friend of mine, and another lawyer called Michael Baum. And Michael Baum had what to me was a very unusual lawyer. He had run a firm for many, many years, but he was always getting involved in cases that involved a cause. So the first big case they did was a hemophiliac case, suing the pharmaceutical industry for buying blood that they knew was contaminated with HIV and then selling it to hemophiliacs. And it was a very difficult case because there were statute of limitations problems, and there was also proof problems, actually proving that they deliberately did it and that they knew what they were doing when they did it. And he took on the case just because he cared about it, but all the other attorneys walked away from it because they didn't think it would be a moneymaker. And in the end, they won a big judgment, and he kind of became an important lawyer at that point. But he's a lawyer that I think he takes a lot of business risks, because if he cares about something, he does it whether or not, even if the risk is high, that he's not going to get a payoff in the end. And about 2 years ago, he asked me to get involved in the Monsanto case, suing for Roundup. And again, in that case, the proof was very, very tenuous at that time of whether or not Roundup causes non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. There were studies on both sides, but there were enough studies that we knew that they were causing non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, but the difficulty would be persuading a court and exceeding the legal thresholds that you needed And he said to me, we need to do this anyway, even if we lose this case. We tried the case last summer. The first case, we have 1,000 of these cases. We tried the first one last summer in San Francisco. Again, it was about a 6-week jury trial, and I was on the legal team. And I remember my friend Brent Wisner did the closing argument. He said to the jury in that case, he said, we're asking you to give us a $300 million. This one man who was a school groundskeeper who got non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. And he said, his injuries are only $40 million. You need to give punitive damages, and you need to give enough money so that attorney, and he pointed to the defense attorney, the in-house attorney from Monsanto, and he said, she has the CEO of Monsanto's name and telephone number on a speed dial. And if you come back here with a $300 million verdict, he's going to hit that speed dial button. He's waiting in his office to hear what you're going to say. And he's going to get the verdict, and he's going to call the whole board up, and they're all going to assemble this afternoon. And he's going to say to them, we have to change the way that we're doing business. And the jury came back with a $289 million verdict. And I love working with these guys, and I love the firm, and I love the ethics, and I love the concern that they have about their clients. Because of the bankruptcy, the paralysis cases are a lot less valuable to lawyers than they were prior to the bankruptcy. Headland has doubled down on it. Now, I lived in Malibu, but I moved a year ago because my wife could not take the commute. She's shooting her show, Curb Your Enthusiasm, and she had to go into LA every day. So we moved into Brentwood about a year ago, but all my friends, including my sister, are on Point Doom, which burned during the Woolsey fire. I had my house filled with refugees from that fire, including my 6th sister and 13 animals, goats and dogs and all this stuff that have been living in my house. Our neighbors, my former neighbors, most of them lost their homes. And Michael Baum and Brian's homes were spared. But they immediately called me right after the fire and said, we've got to figure out ways to help people out here. And they were the ones who said, we should represent everybody for free doing insurance claims and FEMA claims, which was what we've been doing for the past couple of months. And then we also began taking some mass tort claims to represent these, the people who've been injured. And when the fires happened up here, people started calling us from up here, and then we started, I began coming up here, and Michael and Brian, and we said, let's try to do something for the people in these fires. Diane said that, and for me, the appeal is that this is I've never seen anything like this. I've seen a lot of injury from pollution and other, mass destruction caused by large corporations. My life has been forcing corporations to internalize the cost of their bad behavior. I believe in free market capitalism, and a true free market promotes efficiency, and efficiency means the elimination of waste, and pollution is waste. And a true free market would require us to properly value our natural resources and our neighbors' quality of life and the value of their land, etc. And in a true free market, you can't make yourself rich without making your neighbors rich and without enriching your community. What polluters and large corporations do is they make themselves rich by making everybody else poor. They raise standards of living for themselves by lowering quality of life for their neighbors, and they do that by escaping the discipline of the free market and forcing the public to pay their costs, their profits. And in a true free market, if you're an actor in the marketplace, you have to pay the full cost of bringing your product to market. That includes the cost of cleaning up your mess, which is a lesson we were all supposed to learn in kindergarten. What corporations specialize in is figuring out ways to get other people to pay their cost of production. And this community is part of Pacific Gas and Electric's cost of production. They decided that they could save money by not doing the kind of inspections that they should have been doing, by not insulating their wires, which would have been a cost to them, but it would have spared this community if they had done it. And by leaving 100-year-old towers with rotting hooks on them, corroding hooks, that obviously were going to fall apart. The 5 towers next to the tower that caused this blaze all fell down in December of 2015. And they replaced them because they were 100 years old. And they replaced them, and yet in the federal case, we've learned that they never even bothered to inspect this tower. They had, in the last decade, they've had 0 inspections of the tower, except they inspected it once from the air. And it would be pretty difficult to see a corroding hook from the air. Oh, Diane talked about what is Pacific Gas and Electric, what are they up to? And, why are they going into bankruptcy? One of the acts of negligence that they committed was not having an insurance policy. They have a $1.4 billion insurance policy, and they created a $10 billion mess here. That's another way that they externalized the cost in this community. Oh, I know enough that, corporations are not human beings. They don't go to hell for their sins. They don't get punished unless we punish them. And the only way they change their behavior is if, money talks. And for me, it's really important to do this kind of lawsuit, even if they break up the company, so that whoever inherits the piece of the company, well, the first thing they'll do is to have a meeting. I sued Exxon many years ago, and in the deposition they said, we didn't know it was illegal to discharge benzene, toluene, and xylene from this particular kind of pipe into the Hudson River, from a recovery pipe, a recovery pipe. And I said, on deposition, I said, how many environmental lawyers do you have working for you? They had 0. I said, how many tax lawyers do you have working for you? 237. How many taxes did you pay last year? 0. Richest corporation in the world. They paid attention to it because there was a cost to it. I want them to hire a lot of environmental lawyers. I want them to hire a lot of lawyers who are saying to them every day, if you don't insulate those cables, if you don't inspect those towers, if you don't do the things that you're supposed to do, if you don't put weather stations in appropriate places so that you know when there's going to be a problem, you're going to pay a much larger price in the short term. And so for me, the urgency of this lawsuit, because of the suffering that's occurring in these communities, and because of the need to hold these corporations accountable, it's critical that we continue these lawsuits, and do so aggressively. And I love the people that I'm litigating with. Brian and I love Michael. They're 2 of my closest friends now in the world because, brotherhood doesn't come from blood, it comes from shared values. And these are people who share my own values. They also have a team of people. Brian's been doing fire cases for many years. Diane's been doing fire cases for 35 years. Ron Goldman is probably the most experienced fire lawyer in California or the world. He's been doing fire case for 50 years. We have a team that I think is the best team, and that is, is a team, again, that is going to care about clients. Anyway, I'm happy to be here. I am so distressed about what you've gone through, not only with the fire, but dealing with the government agencies and the housing and all of and the rain and all of the issues that all of you have had to put up with that have made your lives just a parade of frustrations since the fire occurred. And, you know, to the extent that we can help in any way to alleviate some of those problems, those daily problems, we'd like to do so. I'm going to bring Diane back up here, and we're going to try to answer whatever questions you have.
Yes.
What do you believe is the actual proximate cause of the fire?
The proximate cause of the fire was determined to be when the link failed, it caused the fire to begin. I mean, that was the source.
A corroded hook.
A corroded hook.
A corroded hook on the tower.
So power companies are.
Oh, and by the way, CAL FIRE has not issued a report. I think that that's not unusual. That sometimes they take a year to issue a report on this. But I think the verdict is already in, and as far as we are concerned, we're going to hold Pacific Gas and Electric responsible for their negligence. They committed acts of negligence, and you know, we believe that that was the cause.
One of the things that we always do is try and determine all of the responsible parties. So in some fires, there might be one entity that caused it, but another that contributed to it. And for example, in the Woolsey fire, although it was, we believe, Southern Cal Edison that caused the fire, we believe that Boeing, that owned and controlled the property, contributed to it in a number of ways, and we've alleged that. So one of the things we looked at here was, is there anyone other than Pacific Gas and Electric that might be held responsible? To date, no one has found one of those, but it's obviously a quest to know who it was. And one of the things that Mr. Kennedy and I were talking about in the car is, if this had been a newer hook, for example, that had just been put on, then there might be a question of whether or not the hook was a defective hook. And then you'd look at the company that created the hook. But this hook was 100 years old and only inspected by air in the last decade. I don't know whether they were flying kites or, you know, but